Hi there! Today we're going to be building a new PC. So here's our case in all of its glory, and what we've got is at the top here, this is the top fan. Over here we've got the rear fan, we've got the front disk drives over here, and we've got a whole bunch of cables and stuff, and this is the bottom of the case down here where my hand is now. We've also got a hole here for the power supply unit, and yeah, we're going to get started. So the first thing I want to fit is the motherboard. Now I could fit the power supply unit first, or the motherboard first really. Doesn't really matter that much. The reason I want to do the motherboard first is so that I've got a little bit more space to put my hands down near the bottom here. So I'll put the motherboard in first and the power supply unit will come next. So I'm going to get on my knees here. So the first thing you need to do when fitting a power supply, when fitting a motherboard, is to figure out where the steadies are going to go, essentially. So if you see each one of these, I've already put the steadies in for this motherboard. They're already there, but for some motherboards there may be a slightly different configuration for these. So what you need to do, I mean, you can see probably that there's a few empty holes over here. There's the C, F and L, I think that is, holes over here, and there's also a H and an I hole here that haven't been filled in. So for each different motherboard, to figure out where you need to put these pins, and these pins look like this. If I hold this up to the camera, if you can see that. So basically on one side you have a hole for a screw, and on the other side it is an actual screw. Okay, so sorry to go in from an odd angle there, but essentially these will go into the little holes, and so for example L down here, that'll go in there, then the motherboard goes on top of those and kind of sits on them, and the screws go in above the motherboard. So the easiest way to figure that out is to kind of place the motherboard in where it would go, and you can find the screw holes in the motherboard. There you go, it's actually slotted in there nicely and won't move. You can actually find the screw holes in the motherboard. So there's one there, there's one here, there's another one here right at the end, and then there's one over here, one in the middle, and one in the middle there. So there's actually two in the middle there. So once I've got all those in place, the next step is to fit the back panel. So this back panel here, that will tell us exactly, you know, where the VGA card is, that sort of thing, needs to go in this slot down here. And as the way they're designed, all they need to do is clip in. So essentially the only thing that can go wrong here is to get it upside down. So you need to figure out which way around it goes. This one goes this way around. So I just need to basically clip this in here. Get that in there, and clip that in, and there is the back panel, all sorted. Just make sure that that's in properly. So the next thing to do is to actually set the motherboard. Just pushing these metal bits in a little bit. So the next thing is to set the actual motherboard itself. So we'll grab the motherboard here, and we'll slowly but surely. The tricky part is to feed the actual holes, the actual sockets for devices, into the back panel here. So essentially all I need to do is make sure that these all fit in their respective holes, and then give it a little bit of a push and make sure that they're in. So I will do this and get back to you in a second. Oh, there we go. It's in. It's in. Perfect. So just give it a little bit of a push down. Make sure that it's all fitting in. That little click was actually it slotting into the screws below as well. So we know that it's in now. And I can push down on each one of the screws, make sure that it's all steady. So the next thing we need to do is do up the screws. So I'll do that now with my trusty screwdriver here. So let's do a little bit of a fast forward. Right, now the motherboard is set into place. The next thing we're going to install is the power supply unit, which is going down here. So what I will do is I'll grab the power supply unit. Now, this is a modular power supply unit, as you can see by the panel that will go inside the computer there. And the way that it's designed, you can actually put it in either up or down. So you can put it in whichever way you choose. Now, the recommended way to do this is to have the main fan at the bottom of the case. Because this power supply unit is going at the bottom of the actual case, you want the fan facing down outside of the computer. If the fan faces inside the computer, you'll have a lot of mixed airflow inside the computer, and it'll be competing for warm air. So the best place is to have this facing outside the computer. So I'm going to put it in this way round. So let's move this case out a little bit and set this in place. So essentially, I want it to go in there just like that. Yeah. So I'll screw this in very quickly and we'll move on. Right, that is the power supply unit all set. So like I said, I'll just show you this now from top down. You can see that there's no fan going up into the computer here, and the fan is actually facing out of the bottom here. Okay, now on the back of the computer, if I can show you this very quickly, for this power supply unit we have 4 screws, one here, one here, one here and one here. Yeah, so all I need to do was screw that in. There's no other way that it's connected to the PC. It's just there with those 4 screws. So let's put this down and figure out what we're going to do next. Right, next thing we're going to install is the processor, which is going to go here. So first of all, I've got a cap on here that says, for protecting the socket pins, please don't remove this cap unless you want to install CPU. So I want to install CPU, so I'm going to get rid of this cap. And how do I do that then? Let's have a quick look here. I imagine it's going to be as simple as letting this go and taking this off. There we go. So there is the CPU area there. Now, do I have to see if we can actually remove this cap entirely? If I unclip that from there, yeah, so that just unclips and comes straight off. And basically, I want to put the CPU into there. So let's take this out of its little plastic casing, and be very gentle with these because these are the main power processing units of the computer. Now it's just a case of figuring out which way up it goes. So after a very quick look, basically there are 2 nodules on here, one either side, and they stick up a little bit. Now on the processor itself, if you have a look closely, you can see on either side there are 2 nodules, one there and one there, and they go in. So basically that tells you how to align your processor. So all I need to do is drop that gently into there, and it'll sit there nicely, nice and snug, and then I can close the cap and pull this lever down like so and put it back underneath there. Okay, and that's how to install the CPU. Now I'm not going to install a fan with it because I'm going to be installing a water cooling system on this shortly, but that will come, like I say, that will come a little bit later. The rest of this stuff I'm going to get in first. Okay. So next thing we're going to be installing is the memory, and I have 4 of these 8GB DIMMs, Corsair Vengeance, and these are going to go in these 4 slots here. Now because I've got 4, I'm just going to put them in all 4 slots, but if you only have 2, then definitely read the manual of the motherboard and see which 2 of those 4 slots to put your cards in, to put your DIMMs in. Essentially they will work in all of them, but sometimes they run faster if they're in particular slots. So I'm going to take these memory cards out now, and I'm going to put them in. So what I want to do is I want to open up each one of these clips here, and just slot that in like so. Do a little bit of a push, and that should be it. I'm going to push it in. The clips on either side come straight back up again, so that means that it's definitely locked into place. So let's do the other ones very quickly. And basically you can see that in the teeth of the DIMM there's a gap here, right? And in the DIMM slot there is also a gap. Now the gap is slightly off center, so you know exactly which way around to put them. So they always go in around the same way. So I can slot this in here, give it a little bit of a push, like so, and the clips on the side come up. You don't want to be too rough with these when you're giving it a bit of a push, just in case you snap the motherboard. You've got to give it just the right amount of force to get these in. So let's do the third one here, and give that a bit of a push on either side, like that. There we go, that's 3 done. And the fourth and final one, let's just open this here, and turn it round and put it in there, like, oh, a little bit of a push there, and there we go. So each one of these is now fully placed into the sockets. Make sure that the clips all click into place there. So they're nice and secure now. So those are my 4 DIMMs of RAM. So the next thing we're going to install is the graphics card. Now with graphics cards and PCIe cards, you basically need to figure out which one of the back panels you need to remove. So if we just hover this over where we're going to put it, we know that we need to remove these 2 back panels. So let's get rid of these first. Let me put this graphics card back down on the sofa so I know where to sit, and let's get these removed. I need a screwdriver. Let's get this one out first, and then this one. And then we can basically pull these upwards, keep them away from the motherboard, and we have spaces. So then we take our graphics card, which is behind me, and we very gently lower this into position. So we basically need to get this aligned up nicely so that it slots into here. And it's not aligning very well. Let me just see if I can fix that. The reason for that is I've actually got some caps on the back of the graphics card, so I'm just taking those off now. Let me just get those out of there so I can remove those caps. Take all these caps off. And there's number 3 and number 4. There we go. So basically on the graphics card I had a cap on each one of these connectors. Just remove the caps first and you should be good to go. I'm also going to remove this sticker, this bit of plastic. There we go. That'll do. No, that won't do. Let's get rid of this one as well. There we go. And then lower this very gently onto the PCIe slot there. Now it should just ease in there like that, and we're done. That is all we really need to do to actually install the graphics card. So we'll then take our 2 screws that we just took out, put those back in to secure the back panel. Ooh, try not to drop them. And eventually, let's do this with a screwdriver so we've got more control. There we go, much more like it. And so that's one, and then number 2 goes in here like so. And I'm getting text while I do this, because that's how popular I really am. So there it is, there's the graphics card all installed, all nice and snug. That's all there is to the graphics card. Obviously we'll install the power very shortly, but in terms of the graphics card itself, that is now installed. So the next thing we want to do is attach our hard drives. Now these go in these slots here, and I've already done this with both my solid state and my 3TB standard hard drive. The reason I've done this off camera is because it was quite fiddly. Now the first one is the solid state. To actually attach this, what you need is one of these solid state rails, and I've got this extra little enclosure. So if I compare this to, say, this enclosure here, you can see that it's missing a lot of plastic. The reason for that is that the solid state drive has an extra enclosure for it. So let's shove that back in there and close that up. No, I can't do that because it's bent. Is it? No. Right, shove that back in there. So that's the solid state drive. Basically, the actual rail for the solid state drive has 2 screws there and 2 screws on this side. And then the actual rail itself then just slots into this, and this then just slots back into the computer like so. For the standard hard drive, we can get this out. It is pretty much the same, but there's no rail. So the standard hard drive just clips in with these metal clips here. They just clip straight into the hard drive, 2 on both sides, 2 on either side, and then the thing just slots straight back into there, nice and neat. Now the cables for these will be on the underside of the case, and they will come out of here and then go wherever they need to go. They'll plug into the motherboard over around about, where do they plug in? They plug in over here, and that's where they go. So the next thing I want to do is attach my DVD drive, which again I'll probably do off camera and then just show you about it. And yeah, let's skip ahead. Forget skipping ahead actually. I found out that this case actually has one of the easiest optical drive mount point systems that I've ever encountered. So essentially what we do is we pop the front panel out here like this. So then we've got a hole here. Then all we do is slot in our optical drive the right way up, and we put it to where we want it to go, which is there, so it's flush against there. And then on the side, you'll see these buttons here. All we need to do is press in this button, and that secures the optical drive. So if I turn that back around again, and there's the DVD drive at the bottom there, you can see that if I push that, it no longer moves, and that's all there is to it. So like I said, that's one of the easiest optical drive installations that I've ever encountered. So what's next then? So the next thing we're going to do is install the water cooler. I've already made a start on that. That's this bit here. Basically we've got the main cooling radiator up here at the top, which is connected to this down here, which is the heatsink, which will attach to the processor over here. One thing that I need to mention now is that I've made a mistake earlier during this build. I forgot to do the back plate to the motherboard, so I've just had to take the motherboard out and put that back plate in. What I'll do in this video is I'll put a big warning on. Earlier on in the video you would have seen that a few minutes ago, to actually put the back plate on. So essentially the back plate goes onto the motherboard around here, around where the processor is, and then there's these screws that come out of the back plate onto this side of the motherboard. The water cooler itself, the heatsink, which is over here, will go onto there, and then there's a cap which is just on the floor here, which will go above that onto the processor, hold it in tightly and make sure it doesn't go away. So let's leave that over there for now. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm screwing in this radiator, after which I will screw in the fans. There was a massive fan here before, which I've taken out, which you may have noticed. But basically, yeah, I apologise for cutting a bit. I thought that the camera was on while I was explaining all this, but it wasn't recording properly. So yeah, here we are, and I'm just going to finish screwing in this radiator, if you'll bear with me. And there we have it, that is the radiator all attached. So there are 8 screws in the back at the top of the machine here. Now on the front of the radiator I need to attach the fans. So there's going to be one fan here and one fan here. So I have one fan here now. So what we need to make sure is that the air intake is pulling air into the case. So we want the air to flow in through the radiator and into the case. Okay, so basically we need to figure out which way around this fan's going to go. Fans go that way, and when it's going that way it will be pulling air into the case, I believe. That is, yep, that's right. So this needs to go on here like this, and I also need another one there, so I might figure out which way round this is best going by shoving a screw in here. I think it'll be best off going this way round so that the cable is facing out of the top of this. So we'll just put a couple of screws in at the top here for now. There's one there, and here's one, oops, there. There we go. Now the problem with this is that because of the way I've done this, my memory is actually in the way of the screw at the bottom there. So I'm just going to attach this with 3 screws. Obviously that is not advised. You should always attach these sorts of things with all of the screws. But I'm not going to take apart my computer again for that. So let me just screw these in. There's one, there's 2, and there's 3. I may off camera do the other screw there by taking all this memory out, but not right now. Right now I'm just going to crack on and do the other fan, which is on the floor here. Let's get that out of its case. So we want it to go that way up, so let's grab a screw and place it in here like this. And do a couple of hand turns on that screw. Another screw through that hole there. Again, a couple of quick hand turns. And the other 2 screws, one down here, like that. And again, I'm not going to be able to screw that one in, so we'll leave that 4th screw out for now, but we can get this one in like that. That's 1, that's 2, and this is number 3. What I'm going to do is off camera I'm actually going to go and plug these other 2 screws in now, just so that we have fully secured fans. So I'll pause the video here, I'll come back in just a moment. Okay, so off camera I just took out my memory DIMMs and I put in the last 2 screws to these fans. So the next thing is to actually attach this to the CPU. So basically I need to pick this up from here, figure out which way round it needs to go, and I also need to put this cap on it as well. So I think it's going to probably go this way up, isn't it? So that fits the cap quite nicely there, like that. So there we go, slot it in nicely. Let's turn this upside down, and I have a suspicion that it goes in just like this. Yep, that seems about right. So we've got the pipes coming off above the memory, like so, and if I reach around and grab my hand screws here, I can screw that into there, and I can get another one over here for this. So there's 4 of these, 1 in each corner. Screw that into there like that, and then another one in this corner. You might not be able to see this one because the graphics card is in the way. Let's just screw that one into place, and then finally one more over here for, whoops, oh, nearly dropped it, for this one. It's quite tricky to get my fingers into. So there they are, there's the 4 screws all screwed in. Let's get our handy screwdriver, give those a little bit of a tighten. Yep. That's that one done. 3 and 4. Perfect. And we'll also take the little plastic cover off it as well. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So lift that up a bit. You can see, let's move it that way a bit. You can see the processor has a cap on it. That's where the pump is. Then we've got the 2 pipes that lead up onto the radiator, which is at the top of the case there. So now we have a few spare cables that we just need to plug into to our power. So that is all of the components installed now. The next step is just to connect all of the cables up, and then we should be good to go. So I'll just cut ahead a little bit. So here we are with all the wires in place. That took me a little longer than expected. Basically, I had a bit of a compatibility issue with the heatsink up here. There were 2 fans here and here, if you can see that. There's now only one here. Basically, with the second fan on, I wasn't able to plug in the power for the motherboard, so there's a bit of a compatibility issue with the water cooling system, but I don't plan on overclocking this too high, so 1 fan for the water cooler should be enough to keep me going. It's a bit of a shame, but that's the way things go sometimes. So everything's wired up. We've got all the power cables going through here, and all of the front end cables are all down there. Now all we have to do really is turn it on and see if it works. And here we are finally with the finished product. I've just hooked this up to my new monitor, and you can see my laptop there on the right hand side, and I'm just about to start installing Windows. So that's about it for this video. I'll say thank you very much for watching. Until next time, bye bye now.